Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Wynn's Kitchen podcast. I'm your host, Wynn Austin, and today we have a special guest, Phil Gorman of CPG Brains, which is an online marketplace where brands can connect with independent industry experts. Hi, Phil. Thank you for joining our podcast. How are you doing?
Doing good, Win. Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I ran into you, I think it's a few weeks now in LA, gearing at an event, gearing up for Expo West. And you shared that you just launched a company called CPG Brains. And so I was so fascinated. I want to hear more. Can you tell me a little bit about, how you got started in launching this marketplace?
Sure thing. Yeah, no, it was great to meet you in person finally. LinkedIn has been a great, I've been watching, you from a distance, so to speak, through LinkedIn and your progress and frustrations that you've been posting online. And, so to meet you in person and try your product in person, it was really, it really was a great thing. So I started CPG Brains because my story is not very different from yours. So
Hmm.
I'm a CPG brand owner as well. I have
Hmm.
a brand called Cali Bagels, organic bagels, very California style of bagel. So not trying to be New York or any other bagel, just California bagels. So
What is California style versus New York style?
organic number one,
Okay.
and natural and clean or simple ingredients.
Hmm.
So we have more of a local vibe in that regard.
I
Yeah,
love that. I love
yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then I have bagel chips as well. And that's we'll save that for another podcast. But
Mhm.
it was in building those two products and going through the trials and tribulations and getting them manufactured and building the brand that led me to start CPG Brains. I had some idle time in the fall. And I thought, I have a lot of different skill sets and things that I can contribute to the community. And so I just kind of examined where I had spent the most money in building Cali Bagels. And it was pretty evident pretty quickly that I spent it on consultants, right? Because
Right.
I don't have a food background. And I was hiring folks to help me on the manufacturing side and commercial bakery side, distribution side. I have an agreement with McCormick and Company, and that required me to hire a PR agency, not a
Wow.
person, but an agency as part of
Wow.
our agreement. So I had to outsource all those pieces of the puzzle, and that's where I
Right.
spent the most money. All fine, it was all good experiences, but I could have used more folks. I could have used a better resource. So I thought, I'll throw some of my friends that are freelancers in the industry. I'll throw them on a website and just invite brands in to come check them out and hire them if they want. So
Right.
to get set up, I just put a post on LinkedIn saying, hey, CPG experts, if you want to get listed on my website, just fill out this form. And I got
Right.
100 responses in the first week. So yeah, it was kind of crazy.
So I want to backtrack a little bit because you said you spent the most money on consultants and
Yep.
everyone's different. I mean, I really started Wynn's Kitchen from like my kitchen as a side hustle. I never ever would have imagined in my entire life how expensive CPG can be.
Yeah.
And and what I love about your platform is that, you know, back in 2019, there really was not a lot of resources for
Yep.
CPG. I was just Googling, trying to find, I was on Recipal, I bought some books, and information out there is so confusing and overwhelming. And at that time, and even now, I just don't have, $10,000, $15,000 to spend on consultants. And I mean, we don't even want to talk about PR is a lot even more
Mm.
expensive.
Yeah.
But what I love about your platform is that there's flexibility for for someone like me, starting out really from the ground up. If someone just say, I get messages all the time. How did you go from making a sauce in a pot in your kitchen and then now your product's on shelves? And there's so many steps that can get to that, but giving them the information on the first 5 steps with like 1 hour or 2 hour consultation, I
Yep.
think is so huge for a new brand or someone that is thinking about starting a brand.
Right.
Before they start investing thousands and thousands of dollars, they have to really talk to an expert that's walked in those shoes to know, is this what I want to do?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, we were leading parallel lives, I think, between 19 and 20 and today. So I didn't have a big bank account to draw upon, so that
Right.
was not necessarily a way I wanted to go.
Right.
But I also understood my shortcomings as not being a food expert, not
Right.
having the experience. What I would have done differently, to your point, if I could have hired a few of those people for a couple of hours, oh my gosh,
Right.
I could have gotten so much more done. But instead, I had some lengthy
Mhm.
contracts and engagements that were overkill. They were too much for what I needed at the time.
Mhm.
Because as you know, from
Right.
day to day, who knows, right? Who knows
Right.
what's going to happen, from one day to the next and where our efforts will lead us. I
Mhm.
joke around that, I used to wake up every day expecting to get kicked in the groin, right? Because that's the way things had gone. Every time I turned around, there was one mishap after another. And a
Mhm.
lot of it was just human error, miscommunications, things like that, all preventable. And no matter how many consultants or how big a bank account I had, there's no preventing that. So it all comes
Right.
back to, right, the buck stops with us and making sure that we're diligent and smart and efficient.
Right.
A lot of people see consultants as an expense. It is
Mhm.
not. It is an investment. So whether you're spending $1,000 or $100,000, it's an investment, and
Right.
it's still cheaper than a permanent hire. Right? I can't hire a
Absolutely.
CFO. We haven't even launched into Whole Foods or Sprouts yet. I haven't received a check yet. I can't get a CFO
Right.
now, so
Right.
maybe a fractional makes more sense. And in the interim, getting the
Absolutely.
books in order, things like that. Preventative, you
Absolutely.
know.
Do you think it would have saved you a lot of money if you had a platform like this when you were thinking about starting Cali
Oh,
Bagel?
absolutely. If I could talk to three people in each, sector that I ended up hiring folks in, and I could have compared, I got referrals to the people that I had, but it was in a very closed type of loop. I
Mhm.
didn't, I didn't even know such people existed. Right? Oh,
Yeah.
you're a
Me neither.
bakery expert and you work on contract and you're a co-man expert. Never heard of
Mhm.
such a thing, but okay. I guess I'll go with you. You're probably the only guy in the country. Well, it turns
Right.
out that they're
Right.
not. So, there's a wealth of information out there. To your
Mhm.
point too, is like, where do I go? So I was listening, during COVID, I was listening to Guy Raz and listening to podcasts and
Mhm.
hearing founder stories. How'd you do it? And there was a lot of great anecdotal tips and
Right.
ideas and things that they were sharing, but then it would fall off a cliff. It's like, okay, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that.
Mhm.
That's not impossible. The thing about what I've developed and I've come to learn, I didn't really have this idea back in November when I first started it,
Mhm.
is that these are people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and work with you on your vision. It's your vision. It's
Absolutely.
your project. It's your product. And they're
Right.
willing, they're great. Everybody I've talked to and met, I've met almost all 300, not quite all, but a lot of the 300 folks that are on my platform as
Mhm.
registered experts. And everybody's intentions are good. They
Right.
all want to help. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. That's what they do. Hey,
Right.
here's where I cut my chops. I was at Kellogg's for 10 years. I was here.
Yes.
I was at this small brand. I used to own a brand, right? I've got a lot of former founders that are in the system and folks like you that are really, really willing to help the startup and the person that really is starting at ground zero, like you and I did a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell people it's like you can listen, you can read books, you can listen to podcasts, and you can learn the general
Yeah.
information. And I still to this day listen to at least one founder story a week
Yeah.
because it keeps me going and inspired. And sometimes it's like you feel like you're alone and you hear these stories. I'm like, oh my gosh, they had to go through these difficulties
Yeah.
and they persevered and it paid off. So I always do that. But at the end of the day, if you're really looking to launch a brand or you're in the thick of it and you're you're like at a new stage of the brand. Like, hey, now I'm, just in San Diego, but now I'm going to sign up with a larger distributor and I need to know what to do. That part is so complicated. And
Hmm.
I just went through that and I had, someone that helped me get
Yep.
over that because if you price your product wrong, you can easily go out of business
Yep.
overnight
Yep.
when you make that big jump. And so I think that I love the flexibility of someone really getting real world advice
Right.
and so that they can implement that advice and also if a consultant has been in it like we are, we know to ask questions.
Right.
And what I find is if you think, oh, I want to do. Everyone thinks when I first started, oh yeah, by the end of the year, I'm going to be like nationwide, all the Whole Foods, all the Sprouts. Um, we don't know the expense or the cost of that. So asking, questions like, okay, well, what is your goal? What is your current revenue? And without like, if you're like, I'm not going to be a financial advisor,
Right.
but just the overall, like what is your budget? How's your inventory? And at least advising like where they should be focusing on until they get to the next step.
Yep.
I think will otherwise there's so much noise out there, especially in the CPG space, and you think, oh, everyone's launching nationwide. I think I should too,
Yep.
and there is such a thing as growing too fast. So that's why I love what you're creating in this community. Can you tell us a little bit about like the different sectors that you have, like the different categories of experts that
Sure.
you're bringing on?
Sure. So the sector that we have the most experts registered in because it's so diverse and there's so many pieces of it is sales and marketing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything from social media and or TikTok or even Instagram experts and people that really drill down to shopper marketing. Um, you know, and then everything involved with that, whether it's Instacart or some of the other systems that are out there and tools that are available for shopper marketing for once you get on shelf,
Mm-hmm.
to PR, to every other piece, content writing, website development, all those things that kind of fall under that general marketing, sales and marketing umbrella. And then sales, a lot of independent sales folks and brokers that work for a commission,
Oh,
are
wow.
willing to go take your product to their customer base. They may have a stable of 4 or 5 brands and they want to make your product the sixth because it dovetails nicely, or they're already calling on the frozen buyer or a buyer that
Right.
may be attractive to you. And it can be a really easy way to connect with somebody that gets in the door that maybe you can't get in on your own. So you're almost paying for their Rolodex, right? So the
Absolutely.
sales and marketing, operations, right? So what happens once you do get in Sprouts or you do go national? You have a
Mm-hmm.
business to run, and there's probably people involved, and maybe even some office space and or machinery or warehouse and
Mm-hmm.
equipment, things like that. So a person that's adept at the day to day distribution, like we talked about,
Yeah. Yeah.
manufacturing, co-manufacturing, and then finance. That's another kind of big topic. So finance,
Right.
not only from the books, but what about insurance? Insurance for CPG is ultra specific. You can't just
Yes.
go online and buy an insurance policy. And then, as you know, once you get in a new distributor or a new retailer or situation, you have to supply new certificates and you have to add them. And
Yes.
there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes paperwork shuffling that goes on.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
folks that are experts in that or certifications and compliance, food compliance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Food safety, right? We have so many things that we have to be aware of. I've been through the organic certification process, depending on who you connect with on that front. It can be as easy or hard as you want it to be. Um, but all in the end, all for good reason, right? All these processes have a good intent behind them all, and food safety being one of the umbrellas there. E-commerce, we were talking before this
Yeah.
call, started. I tell people, you almost need a master's degree in Amazon if you're gonna have your product on Amazon, right? So you might as
Absolutely.
well be an expert
Yeah,
because
the platform is definitely complicated, and I'm lucky that Wynn's Kitchen does do well on Amazon, And but I can assure you, I probably don't have not tapped in nearly as much as I could, to bump up the sales on Amazon. So I might be on your website
Yeah.
today,
Yeah.
looking for some help there. So,
Yeah, and
but
I've had people reach out and say, "Hey, I don't want to advertise the fact that I'm looking for this particular person. Maybe they
right,
have somebody in that role, and they don't want to
hmm
alert them that they're looking for somebody else." So people can
absolutely,
reach out to me directly, and I'll go into the database and give them some recommendations and say, "Here are 3 people. Try them and see how it works." So then they can do their own due diligence
right,
and whatnot. But two, the other thing you mentioned something good, earlier, something that sparked something that I'm familiar with. I have an e-commerce background prior to getting into food. And what I found in the e-commerce world, and I'm seeing it in food as well, is that the founder thinks that they need to know everything about every piece of the puzzle,
mm-hmm.
and then they go dive into Amazon and get all gummed up and spend a ton of time trying to understand it and
Mm-hmm.
move the needle there. And again, it's not a good use of time. You don't need to know how to build a Shopify site. That's easy. Don't waste your time trying to understand the tech. You need to sell. So
Yeah,
some of the pieces of advice that I give people is just focus on selling. Let somebody else build your Shopify site. Even go on Fiverr and have somebody build your Shopify site
right,
if you're really at ground zero, and just get something up and propped up,
mm-hmm.
because it's just an ad. Your website until you start selling is just an advertisement. It's like a flyer. You
Right,
shouldn't waste a lot of time trying to understand how to connect your Facebook page to Shopify and some of the nitty gritty that goes on there, right? And that goes for all the categories. I don't need to become a distributor, an expert in distribution. Now I need to know about it as the company founder. I can't pass it off and leave it alone, but I also don't need to know all the minutia that goes into it. There are people out there that
yeah,
understand all of that, and in a couple hours they can get stuff done that would take you weeks, if not months, to do.
absolutely. And it just saves you so much time and probably helps save you from making expensive mistakes. I
Mistakes
mean,
and relationships matter, right? The folks in our database, they know people.
yes, yes,
What
I
they can get done
definitely,
in a single phone call is ridiculous. A lot of them, where you and I are trying to find that person to call, right, and get them to
right.
call us back, and they're like, "Oh, yeah,
And
they know."
I remember when I was first starting out, and there was no startup CPG. There was not a platform. I didn't even know what CPG was. And so I was just so confused. How do you get a co-packer? How do you, even it's like when I was trying to do cold calls, like I would get retailers tell me, oh, if you don't have a distributor, then, we won't take
Yeah,
you on. And
yep,
then I call the distributor and they're like, well, if you don't have stores, we won't take you on. And it was just so confusing. And I mean,
yeah,
and I come from a business background. I mean, I have a degree in finance. I had my own wedding planning business for 12 years. I did real estate. And it's like the simplest questions could not be answered.
they,
And not a lot of people give you like an upfront answer that would just help you sleep at night. It's
yeah,
like, guess what? When a retailer tells you you need a distributor, means either they're not big enough to be your anchor account to secure a distributor, or they don't want your product at
right.
this time.
They want your order,
Right,
Yeah,
right. And so, but it was like almost like 6 months of confusion. Like I'm so confused. I just don't understand how
yeah.
this works. It's like the chicken or the egg, which one comes first?
Yeah. No, I've experienced the same. And I like to tell people, right? People ask me, what the heck is CPG? My friends and
Yeah.
family, like, I see your LinkedIn. What the heck is CPG? So a lot of people don't know what CPG is. And so in telling them, and then they ask more questions, and I compare it to, or the way I like to kind of summarize that chicken egg and all the roadblocks that we face when we just ask simple questions that don't get a simple answer is
Right.
it's old world, right? Manufacturing,
Yeah.
you know, it's old world versus new world. You just described you're a go-getter, right? You get stuff done. You're a wedding planner. You were on the go. Real estate, you have to like get out there and go.
Yeah.
You own your own brand. You have to
Yeah.
knock down doors to make stuff happen.
Right.
That's not their MO. Their
Yeah.
MO is to take your order and crank it through their machines or their process or their
Yeah.
people and push it out the other end. So when, how many bottles do you want? How many cases?
Yes.
And here's how much we need in deposit. And the answer better be in the thousands, if not tens of thousands, right?
Right.
Otherwise, conversation over. And so it just doesn't jive with that mentality that you and I and a lot of other founders have. And it's just getting things done. They don't necessarily have that mindset of problem solving and resilience like you and I do. They just say no and go move on, and they figure we'll find our way some other way. So it's definitely a lot of old world versus new world. At least that's been a lot of my experience.
That totally makes sense. And because people are used to doing things a certain way, like I think most of the, I had no experience in this industry before, but what I'm thinking, you can correct me, is that I think the old school way is like you have to have enough funds to really hire a broker right off the
Yeah.
bat. And that broker goes and does, and then you have to have enough funds for manufacturing and packaging.
It takes money without a doubt.
It takes money. And then and that's why I think a lot, before I'm like, oh, because I knew my business model is not going to include farmers markets just because I'm a mom. I have my kids on the weekends. I can't be working at a farmer's market. But only when after I started this business did I realize, okay, now I know why a lot of small brands start at the farmer's market. So I think it's so important for someone even thinking about starting a food business to find an expert on CPG Brains, to have those conversations, to see if what model do you want to go after? Do you want to kind of start out farmers market and build your business from there and see where it goes? Or, if you want to go the traditional route, know that this is probably how much it's going to cost and how hands-on do you want. Or for me, I mean, I was working like 2 other jobs while I launched Wynn's Kitchen. And so it's like, my other jobs were taking care of my bills. And then every order that got picked up from my porch, I was selling, porch pickup. I was selling it from my trunk, was going back into Wynn's Kitchen. And I grew very slowly in the beginning. And so I think those are just such great conversations to have, because I do get a lot of people reach out and say, hey, I have a barbecue sauce that everyone raves about. I have a hot sauce that everyone raves about.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's like, well, what makes your hot sauce or barbecue sauce different than what's already on the shelf?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, and you've said this a few different times, and I think this has come with maybe our experience, because I had to do it in a big way recently myself. And I did the same thing with the farmers markets, and that is knowing when to say no, right? Because when we're eager and new and people want us and they want our product, we're so quick to say yes, yes, yes. How many do you need? Here I come, you're going to love it. It's the best bagel you've ever had. It's the best sauce you've ever had, whatever. And knowing when to say no, while it may seemingly be not smart in the moment or seemingly hurt financially in the moment, big picture, oh my gosh, it's such a hard thing to do, but very valuable.
Phil, I think that is the most valuable lesson you gave on this podcast today. I have to admit, I have a hard time saying no because I'm such a go-getter and I get excited. And especially in the beginning, it's like, I don't even know how to, I don't know how much. It's like, okay, it's fine. However it takes to make the sauces from my first co-packer. And then it's like, but then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not making, like, losing money.
Yeah.
I'm not making any money. I didn't know how to price things. I didn't know what margin distributor needs. stores need, and then how that goes back to like my cost per unit and what margins I need. And so I would say knowing all those things in the beginning, and then being disciplined, and then if it doesn't work out numbers wise, to say no. I think
Yeah.
that is the most powerful advice. And I tell you, I still struggle with that to this
Yeah.
day, because I'm such a yes girl that I have to look at all aspects of my life, like, okay, yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
But that is something I actually am working on for 2024, is learning to say no and staying grounded and saying, no, I'm not trying to do national distribution at this point. This is where I'm at, and this is my focus. Um, so
Yeah.
I think that's a very, very valuable lesson.
Yeah, I applaud you. I think because we've hung around so long, now we have a couple years in, we haven't thrown in
Yeah,
the towel or been forced to
yeah.
throw in the towel, that maybe is some wisdom that's come to us just based
Hmm.
on time and just being
Right,
around the business. So yeah,
right,
if I said no more out of the gate, it probably would have helped me. Who knows? Probably
right.
saved a couple of bucks anyway. But the other advice I give, and it's worked for me really well, is because you're new, you don't have money, you don't have relationships, you don't know, you're just trying to get your product made,
Yeah,
and how much less sell the thing. So
yeah,
partnerships, reach
yes.
out to people, find people that have bigger audiences than you. Maybe
Hmm.
your product complements what they do. Maybe they're a chain of coffee shops or some other kind
Right,
of approachable business that has just a way bigger capacity than you do at the moment, and teaming up with them to get your product, even on consignment or whatever, get your product
right,
in versus you hauling your cooler and all your stuff to the farmer's market in your tent on Saturday
right,
or Sunday mornings at 5 a.m., right, and getting set up. Just partner with other people that have locations, that have
right.
sales points, or websites or things that may be able to take you on and at least get you further exposure, maybe some other product feedback, some new fans,
Right.
who knows, right? Some social media cooperation, things like that. I was lucky enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I've been lucky enough, because coming from e-commerce, and prior to that, when it was called mail order. So I'm a little bit older than you, but I was in a business. Mail order became e-commerce when it went digital, basically.
Oh yeah, mail order is like the Avon sales.
Well, not only that, but just
Yeah.
things you clip a coupon or an ad in a magazine and say
Oh,
send 40
okay. Okay.
dollars, right? And
Okay.
or LL Bean catalog, right? That was
Oh
mail
yeah,
order.
yes, that's right. I
You
remember those.
tear out
Yeah.
the form in the middle, and write in what you wanted and like the item number, and then you'd mail your check in with
Yeah.
the piece of paper. So I was in that world for a long time, and then it became e-commerce,
Wow.
right, when it went digital and Shopify and the rise of Amazon and all those good things. So in that world, it's product, offer, and audience. And it has
Mm-hmm.
to be an even balance between the three, or close to even balance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything about the product, whether it's price, who it appeals to, the size of the audience, that sort of thing, what it is it shippable? Is it mailable? How does that work? Is it, how is the product? And then the offer, what's your value proposition?
Mm-hmm.
Why do people want to buy your thing over something else? Is it price driven? Is it just a better widget, better mousetrap, cooler, better looking, whatever? What is that value proposition? And then audience. So audience is the most expensive thing to slay, right?
Yes.
We've all seen those Shark Tank episodes, and people stand up there and say, "Yeah, we've done 1,000,005 to date." And then the Shark Tank folks clap and say, "Oh my gosh, that's great. How'd you do it?" Well, we spent 400 grand on Facebook ads. And it's like,
Yes.
well, you know, you bought your audience. That's nice, and you had that money to burn, but that's not a true. So finding a partner or somebody that has a baked in audience that's willing to let you to tap into that with them in a
Mm-hmm.
in a partnership way can really really add some rocket fuel to what you're doing.
Right. And that's my favorite form of marketing, is collaborations, because you
Hmm.
not only do I feel like the two brands help each other. It's like you're able to share each other's audiences, and it's very organic.
Yeah.
And even one of my girlfriends, she owns Buttered Bake Co. She's a keto baking company. And, we've been friends for over 10 years, met through some mutual friends. And so when she started doing keto, that's when because I was already cutting out sugar. And so I asked her, I'm like, well, what are you putting in this frosting that tastes so good? Because I don't like stevia. I don't
Uh-huh.
have a sweet tooth in general, but it's all the hidden sugars that I stay
Sure.
away from. Like if I'm buying a sauce that's savory and there's a bunch of sugar in there, I don't like that.
Yep.
But so that's where I learned about monk fruit
Yep.
from her, and she does a lot of farmers markets, and she's kicking it back up. So just recently, I give it to her on consignment, and I'm like, she's like, I'm already doing it, so I might as well add your product to my booth.
There you go.
And yeah, so it was a win-win for both of us. Because this is something she's already doing. And so I agree with that. And I'm always keeping my eye out for collaborations and, if it makes sense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It has to make sense. So,
Yeah. Because there's usually a lot of folks that'll say, oh, yeah, you can put your stuff on our shelf and then we'll send you a check when it sells. I'm like, okay,
right.
consignment can be good, but yeah, if it's not truly a partnership where it's win-win, then or win, then it really it has to be win-win, or otherwise somebody will walk away unhappy.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so Phil, so right as of now, how many experts do you have signed up
You
on
know,
your
that's a great question. So we have 300 right now. I have
Mhm.
tailed off on bringing folks in only because we want to serve those that we have really
Yes.
well. So
Mhm.
I'm about to ramp up. We have a lot of good content coming. We have some other corporate partners that have come on board to help support us in our mission
Wonderful.
and helping small brands get stuff done. I mean, we serve large brands as well, but the neediest we have 60 brands that are on the platform now that have
Mhm.
registered. All of them are selling product today. There's
Oh,
not one
wonderful.
that is thinking about selling a product or still
Mhm.
toiling in their kitchen like you and I were a few years back.
Right.
These are products that sell. They're indoors, or maybe they're D2C only at the
Mhm.
moment, and they're trying to get to that next level. And they're aware that there are challenges ahead. They
Right.
know that they just don't know exactly what it is yet, but they know, right? Hey, we're rolling out. I've talked to a few of the brands. We're rolling out in Whole Foods in the third quarter, and we know we're going to have this challenge. We'll be back to hire somebody when that challenge happens, right? I can't use
Right.
them today because I don't have that challenge today. But it's coming. Or they're getting funding. They're anticipating funding. They've received a
Okay.
letter of intent from a VC or another investor. They have money coming. They plan on coming on the platform and getting the appropriate folks together to help them get to that next stage. So 60 brands and 300 experts. We hope by the fall it's about triple. Those numbers are about triple based
Mhm.
on efforts that are forthcoming. And then I have CPG Day planned for October 17th in Los Angeles. So that's
Awesome.
an all day learning event that mimics an event I had done in partnership with Shopify back before the pandemic. So
That's wonderful.
yeah, 60 speakers, all learning, depending, it doesn't matter what size business you are. We'll have the education will be geared towards the level of business you're in. So
Mhm.
4 different tracks of learning to help get that solved. And then, like I say, 60 speakers, lots of experts, lots of folks to talk to and network with. So again, this is about getting work done and getting
Yeah.
the product built and the company in a stable and safe and profitable
Right.
trajectory
Right.
versus, I'm not bringing buyers there. We're not going to get you in front of buyers, and we don't do that. But
Right.
there's some people in our network can help with that. But we as a company are all about getting the business in good shape and getting the right people to help you get that business solid.
That is wonderful, Phil. I mean, I commend you. I think this was much needed in the CPG space because they're real. I just don't think there's really anything out there. Like, I
Yeah.
go on Slack here and there and ask a question, but it's different having someone that, you know, that you can click with and that understands and cares about your brand. And I think that's the cool thing about having like a consultant that
Yep.
really, and everyone connects with someone else differently. That
Yep.
that your personality that has to mesh. They have to understand your business. They have to, for me, it's like I only want to work with someone who cares about my
Yeah.
brand, who cares about how well I do. And I feel like everyone that's been in the shoe, whether they used to be a buyer or they have their own brand, they really do care. They want you
Yeah.
to succeed, especially if you're going to hire them as a consultant, and and hopefully help people avoid maybe some of the mistakes they've seen or mistakes that they've seen brands make,
Right.
and then just tailoring it that to that particular person.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we sell physical products, right, that people
mhm,
touch and enjoy and ingest, right, on the food and beverage side.
mhm.
So that takes people, and people
Yes,
do business with people is an
right.
old saying. And to find those people to help you get it done, you have to have them. It's unavoidable. We're not selling software and things that we can multiply,
Yes,
that can scale, ridiculously without the help of a bank or a manufacturer, or a truckload of flour or anything
yes.
else, right? This takes people. And yeah, we've got them.
I love that. And I love people. I'm not against AI or anything like that, but having people and having relationships will never change. I mean, AI and computer software can never replace um, the advice, the personal experience that a person has had, and so that they can help other people and help themselves. So, I mean, that's something I feel like I always go back to. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I miss going back to like the old school. I'm on the road so much now. I call everyone, and some of my friends, they don't like to talk on the phone. I still call them.
Yeah.
But it's different than sending a text,
Yep.
uh, hearing their voice and seeing how their day is doing. So I love what you're doing. I want to thank you for spearheading this and building the community and helping the whole CPG industry. We need help. I mean, we're all, when I walk Expo West, I'm like, everyone here was in their house one day tinkering around doing something, and they came up with an idea or a dream. Like, it was started as this tiny little seed, right, that took some time and planning and a lot of guts to really go for it.
It
um,
does.
so
It
having
really does.
it really does. But we need the innovation. I
Yep.
mean, these are the people that makes the world and create these better for you products. And so, no, I commend you for helping support and building the community for CPG. So
Great, Win. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And I look forward to getting together with you again soon.
thank you so much, Phil. And everyone, thank you for listening today. I'll make sure I'll post a link to Phil's website, cpgbrains.com. And so that you can, if you're a brand out there that's looking to get advice, learn, and hire experts, you can do that. And yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Have a
Win.
good day. Bye,
Hey, you
Phil.
too. Talk soon. Bye bye.
Bye.